on January 30th, my friend Sheriff Mack and I and a number of other speakers are going to be going to Las Vegas, Nevada, and we have the first annual Constitutional Sheriff and Police Officers Association convention. You can find out more at cspoa.org. And we are in the process of inviting 200 sheriffs to Las Vegas. And I'm going to start the day by teaching them about the Bill of Rights and the principles of self-determination. Sheriff Mack will pick up with his Supreme Court victory supporting the 10th Amendment and state power over federal power. And we have several sheriffs from around the country who have already stood up to federal tyranny, and they've done so successfully. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of this meeting is to basically, verify that the sheriff understands how much power they have in the county, that they understand that they are not doing this alone, that there are already other sheriffs who are out there defending these constitutional principles, and to basically build kind of an ad hoc support group for these sheriffs, so that they will be willing and prepared to help defend us against the federal and even possibly state government.
Well, this is the sort of revolution we need. We need those buffers on the county level to protect us from federal tyranny. And unfortunately, many of the police and sheriff departments are backing down to the federal pressures. I had this same discussion with my local police department. They kept saying, well, if we're given an order to implement martial law, then we have to follow that order, and that there's a hierarchy here, and we have to follow the order of the federal government. Completely ignorant to the true checks and balances created with our system.
Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to correct those misunderstandings. And again, there are several sheriffs across the country that have already stood up to this type of tyranny. They've already been successful on their own, and we want to increase their success and their numbers by giving these sheriffs time to talk among themselves and to basically gather strength and courage from common understanding.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely be keeping up to date on what happens with that, because it sounds like a great idea. And if the sheriff's department doesn't work, some people are talking about militias and that kind of thing. Have you looked into that at all?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Well, how many people want to live in a free country or a free state? Well, just about everybody. Well, the Second Amendment doesn't say that, well, if you want a free country, then having a militia is optional, kind of like, picking a color. It says it's necessary. If you want to jump out of an airplane, a parachute is absolutely necessary. If you want to make a second skydive, you have to have a parachute. So if you want to have a free country, it is absolutely necessary, mandatory, obligatory that you have an unregulated militia, basically you and I and everybody else, to defend ourselves from the government when the government gets out of control.
We've been told by Big Sis, Jenna Napolitano, that these are criminals, that these are terrorists, and that they're not there to protect us, that they're indeed there to come after us all. We have this negative connotation of the militia now. Not I, but most people, I would say, seduced by the lamestream, has this just very gloomy picture of them. That's pretty troubling that happens, that they're trying to paint the sovereignty movement. 60 Minutes did a piece on that, and the militias as being homeland terrorists. And I think that's feeding in, unfortunately, in some respects, whether they want to or not. into the fear-mongering paradigm that they present.
Well, when someone is guilty of treason, it's not a big surprise that they are willing to lie to you,
Right.
and it's a common human trait to do misdirection, that the person who is guilty of the crime immediately accuses someone else of the same crime. Children do the same thing. No, I didn't break the lamp, Mama. My brother did. And so the only, difference is we're supposed to be smart enough not to fall for those kind of lies. So here in Indiana, where I'm, at currently, in this summer, the Indiana Supreme Court made a ruling that
Right.
people in Indiana are not allowed to defend themselves against the police, even if the police are kicking down the door at 2 o'clock in the morning without a warrant and actually in commission of a crime. If the police officers are guilty of a crime, you are still not allowed to defend yourself
Wow.
because apparently that violates Indiana state policy. Well, the Indiana Supreme Court can take their state policy and put it where the sun doesn't shine, because anybody kicking down my door at 2 o'clock in the morning is probably not going home again.
Bottom
Nobody
line.
can make it illegal for me to defend myself.
I mean, geez, it comes down to natural law, Michael. If somebody's going to be violating your natural law, then you have every right to protect yourself.
Of course, I have a right to protect myself.
It's a
I mean,
God-given right. I mean, whether you're religious or not, it's this something that goes beyond even the Constitution, perhaps.
absolutely. Your rights precede the Constitution. They didn't invent freedom of speech when they ratified the First Amendment. They didn't grant you the right to keep and bear arms with the Second Amendment. You had those rights to begin with, and
Yep.
we just happened to put them down on paper.
Michael Badnarik joining us, folks, with the Intel Hub News Brief podcast. And Michael, as a third party candidate that ran as a libertarian in 2004, if Ron Paul is circumvented from winning the Republican primary, what do you think the chances are that he'll go third party? And if so, what kind of a shakeup will that create?
I have no idea whether Ron will choose a third party bid or not. I have Ron Paul's number in my phone. I could probably call the campaign and talk to him quicker than other people can.
Well,
But
can we
I'm
call him
not.
right now?
No, I won't. No, he's a busy man, and
I
there's
believe it. I believe it.
there's nothing that I could do. I mean, if I had information that would propel him to the top of the hill, I certainly would. But the best that I can do is to talk to people about him and support his campaign in general. And but I have no way to know whether Ron is interested. Ron is getting a little bit older, and he's been doing this for a long time. And I can tell you from personal experience that running a presidential campaign is exhausting, absolutely exhausting. This man is made of steel simply by virtue of the fact that he's still on his feet and still talking and still doing interviews. Um, at some point in time, just the physical exertion has got to take its toll. And you can run a marathon. You know, I don't know, was it 26 point something miles? But eventually, I mean, if you made it 30, 40, 50 miles, eventually the human body is going to give out and you're just going to collapse. So, Ron Paul may be approaching that point where he's willing to stick it out for this particular campaign session. But, if he fails to win the Republican nomination, he may be just tired enough to sit on a park bench and let the rest of us pick up the ball.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. And there's a number of different liberty-minded candidates that are out there besides Ron Paul too, and he may overshadow some of them with being the center, or not the center so much, but he's in there recently on the lamestream media. But the people like Tisha and others out there running are, equally as important to get behind and to pay attention to.
Well, absolutely. And as long as you're mentioning Tisha, I want to let your audience know that I've formally endorsed Tisha Cassida for Congress. Her website is Cassida 2012. That's CASIDA 2012.com.
Very cool. Yeah, and she's going to be coming on my show. I've been meaning to get back to her. Now that I'm back from vacation, I will follow through on that and have her on. So, very cool, Michael. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.